today's video, we're going to pair up a monitor, keyboard and a mouse with that PC that I built the other day for $950. And I'm going to give you some ideas of what you could combine in terms of a budget access to gaming. And this will be paired up quite nicely, even though that build can go much lower if you change the motherboard. That doesn't need to be extremely, well, not extremely, but you could go with a bit lower motherboard. This was just more like a themed part. But let's continue with the peripherals. So we have the AOC 27G2BK monitor. This is full HD IPS, 144 Hz, 1 millisecond response time, and it has NVIDIA G-Sync, which is quite cool because it's 27. Okay, the resolution, this is the highest that I will go with the size of the monitor for full HD. Then we have the keyboard. This is a mechanical keyboard, the GK530, and we have a mouse that resembles to some other mice, but this is AOC AGM600, and altogether can be nicely packed in a single full system that will definitely look and work quite well. The only thing that you need to add to this whole setup is either a headset and a mouse pad, and that's all there is to it. So let's go through individual parts where we could where I can explain you guys each peripheral and how they actually will, I don't know, benefit you for that budget build. So let's start with the keyboard, and this one is quite interesting because we're talking about the GK530 from AOC. It has some dedicated wheels, it has dedicated buttons, it has multifunctional buttons, it has full RGB, 109 keys, full layout, and it really does shine quite nicely when we're talking about the RGB backlight. You can adjust the light, of course, and one more thing, the buttons and the knobs that I mentioned additionally. We have a knob here that you can adjust the volume. You have a button here that you can play, pause, anything that you're watching or listening. Then you have three indication lights, num lock, caps lock and screw lock. And then we go with regular parts. We have from F1 to F12 loads of multimedia buttons and multifunction buttons. F1 to F4 is G1 to G4. Then we have F5 with G5. F6 is mute button. F7 and F8 are volume adjustment. Then we have the multimedia buttons from F9 to F12. And you can adjust the brightness, you can adjust the lights with the arrows and the FN key, which gives you loads of options to, I don't know, adjust your system, adjust your setup to your desired colors. Of course, we have the Windows lock key. And the one thing that actually shocked me about this keyboard is that it has AOC red switches. Now, I didn't expect that, honestly. I didn't. I thought, okay, most likely somebody produced it from them and stamped an AOC logo there. But we have linear silent switches, 2 millimeters of actuation, 4 millimeters of actuation distance, complete distance, 45 grams of actuation force, and key durability at 60 million clicks. This is outstanding. Honestly, I never thought that this would be a possibility in this type of keyboard. But let's go further. We have cable canals at the back, so you have three possibilities, and unfortunately, they aren't running on the side, which at some point I think that's quite alright. You have it in the middle, here on the side where the knobs are, and here where the F1 and F2 are. So you can reroute the cable, which is 1.8 meter rubberized. And I did expect a bit better, let's say braided cable or something similar to that, because I'm not a fan of this when we're talking about visual aspects. Let's be honest, you're not moving your keyboard that much when you're gaming, so there's that fact. At the bottom, of course, we have rubber feet that keep the keyboard steady, and you have a possibility to raise the keyboard, but only with one additional angle apart from the angle that your keyboard is currently laying right on the table. So all in all, it's a quite nice keyboard, quite solid actually. You can adjust the lights. The typing is really nice, and let me just present that to you as well. I would say sort of a silent, but you can still hear the mechanical clicks, not that much as the blue switches that are clicky and stuff like that, but they are more silent than those, and that's for sure. love the fluidity when typing, and the 45 grams compared to the 2mm distance to actuation point is great, because you're actually, moving 2mm, but still you need less force to press them down. And I would say a thumbs up. I'm not a fan of full-size keyboards, but that's my personal opinion. I know you guys, most of you or some of you guys prefer the numerical pad here. Some of you guys like TKL, 85, 65, 60. It's all up to personal preferences. I won't go into that part. But when we're talking about the specifications, it's a quite nice and solid keyboard to jump in and to add to this budget build. Now let's go to something. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. You get a keycap remover as well with the keyboard, which can be, I would say, quite nice. The keycaps are double shot ABS plastic, so take that also into consideration. Now let's head over to the mouse. Now the mouse is something else, and it is quite interesting, even though with the design it really does resemble to the G502, and we have, I think, basilisks from Razer, and yeah, that's it. But I like the shape, and yeah, there's nothing left to say about that, to be honest. I love that shape. It's quite nice. Whole hand fits perfectly fine, and yeah, that's all there is to it when I can say about the visual aspect. But when we go further to it, it has on the left button 2 additional buttons. Scroll wheel. Beneath the scroll wheel you have 2 additional buttons. Of course you have a middle click on the scroll wheel, and you have 3 additional buttons here on the thumb, and not to mention grip on both sides. You have indication light. I think it's an indication light to switch DPI, exactly. And the good thing is that 2 buttons beneath the scroll wheel can go upwards or downwards when we're talking about adjusting DPI. This is good because you don't have to cycle the whole circle to get from one DPI to another. It's just insane to have a single button, but this one is quite okay. And of course, all to personal preferences. I do prefer having 2 buttons. It's just quite, yeah, I would say more approachable to switching DPI, right? So the indication light and the AOC logo here change colors when you change DPI, which is somewhat a standard, I would say. At the bottom we have 5 skates, and you do have to remove the plastic from the bottom part. They aren't PTFE, but what I managed to test out and see, it slides quite alright. It does have a certain friction, not compared to the PTFE 100 PTFE feet that are insane, but these ones are solid. I mean, after all, we are talking and going into the budget segment, so yeah, there's that. Then we have a button for profile switching, so you can have onboard profiles and you can switch them depending on what game are you playing, and also depending on the configuration of your buttons. LED, apart from the indication light, apart from the AOC logo, we have a line going from left around the whole mouse to the right, and it does look solid, I would say. On the left side where the thumb is, it kind of doesn't shine that bright, but on the other side it does, so it depends on the inner position of the LED. Now the final finish is matte black and it looks outstanding. I do have to say, gloss additional buttons, and altogether we have 10 of those. Now for the switches, we have Kylie switches, which is quite a surprise. 80 million clicks. Now compared to some other mice that are reviewed 20, 30, 40, this one goes to 80. When we take into consideration that this is all for a budget build and that you're trying to get the most out of your parts, 80 million clicks is 4 times more than the reviews that I did a couple of weeks ago. So this is outstanding because it gives you more usability, I would say. So yeah, really cool. I love the shape. I love the feel when you place your hand on the mouse, because after all, I am used to it with G502 and that's it. But regardless of that, the mouse is quite solid. We have braided cable, which isn't that flexible. Don't get me wrong, isn't that flexible, and you do need to loosen it up a bit, I would say. Definitely suggestion to either fixate the cable somewhere or to use a mouse bungee, because this will definitely prevent you from not flawless moving, but fluidity in movements. And yeah, that's it. When we're talking about the profile switch and what I mentioned earlier, you can go up to 2 profiles maximum, and that's it, which is still quite alright. Yeah. So matte finish, rubberized grip, 10 programmable buttons. We have 16K DPI resolution and adjustability when we're talking about that. With Pixar 3389 gaming sensor, then what we have, Light FX Sync RGB, which you can synchronize the keyboard, the mouse, and everything else when we're talking about that. G menu as well, and NVIDIA Reflex. So that's really cool because it kind of goes all together in the same segment. Now when we're talking about the 27G2BK monitor, it's a 27-inch monitor which you could rotate, you can raise it up or down, you can pivot, tilt, it's all there. Quite nice pictures, and I do have to say, I used the wallpaper from the last review I did for the AOC Aegon Pro. You have loads of connections, and this is quite interesting because you have a USB hub right here on the side where you actually have all the buttons for the OSD menu. So accessing it is quite straightforward, and it gives you loads of options to adjust because it starts with luminance, then we have color setup, picture boost, OSD setup, gaming settings where you could choose the game mode, so you have already some presets, shadow control, low input lag, game color, low blue mode, override, and all the other stuff. Then we go to next one, we have the extras for input select, off timer, DDC, CI, reset, and details about the resolution and the refresh rate. And that's about it. This is straightforward. I mean, there's nothing left to say. You can add the crosshair, you have a dedicated button here. You can adjust the sub, HDMI, HDMI 2 or DisplayPort. Quite straightforward with the OSD menu. It's really easy to actually adjust the screen. And when we're talking about some additional specs of the 27G2, we have IPS WLED Full HD screen. Viewing angles are 178 degrees horizontal and vertical. Brightness is 250 Cardea per square meter, which I would prefer 350, which would be much better, of course. Static contrast is 1000 to 1. Dynamic contrast is 20 million to 1. Refresh rate goes up to 144 Hz, as already stated, and response time is 1 millisecond. Then the sRGB is 118%, Adobe RGB is 88%, and you can VESA mount it at the back. The coating of the screen is anti-glare matte 3H. So 2 HDMI, 1 DisplayPort, 1 D sub, 1 3.5mm jack for a microphone, and 1 3.5mm jack for audio out. And now, since I'm mentioning 3.5mm jacks, it also has 2 times 2 watts speakers. So when we take everything into consideration when we're talking about that PC build and these peripherals and place everything in a budget, since it has speakers, or you can connect it directly, or you can connect your headset or whatever you desire to do so, this kind of saves up the budget a bit. So everything all together with that PC build, this display, which really is quite solid, I would say. Now, taking that into consideration, since it's 1080p, you have a nice view when we're talking about the 27-inch size. And it's compatible with G-Sync, it has AMD FreeSync. The keyboard is quite great. I do have to say, love the typing on it, especially with the switches, which I didn't expect. And of course, the 60 million clicks is outstanding. The mouse is definitely something else, and with Kylix switches and 80 million clicks is there, but just this cable, you do need to think about something else when we're talking about the cable. Either rerouting it somehow so it doesn't create and give you some problems while moving it or anything similar to that. But all in all, a complete combination of this is definitely a big thumbs up, because this kind of goes into that sweet spot of budget segment, and with that build it's definitely something to look after. Yeah, that will be all. That's it. That's all I have to say, because I know this is an older generation monitor, and you might get something new from AOC in that same segment, but it still works perfectly fine. And I know, for instance, in my country, you can still grab it, and you can definitely find it somewhere else in other stores that is going for a nice price. For these peripherals, keyboard and mouse, it's a quite solid combination as well. So in terms of that, I'll place the links in the description below for the AOC 27G2BK, of course the GK530, the mechanical gaming keyboard, and finally the AGM600 gaming mouse. Everything can be found there. So yeah, that's all there is to it. If this video helped you a bit and gave you some ideas on how to plan your next build, or you have some other ideas to change something from that PC build or this peripheral set, leave a comment and I'll try to help you with advice or something similar to that, which will give you more ideas on what direction you should definitely go. And that will be all for today. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button and click the notification bell. Hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.